This presentation will aim to review the 2018 Spycops campaign by Lush Cosmetics, reviewing and analysing the key semiotics used within the advert to drive the brand's message, and also reviewing the signs that have been drawn on to communicate this message within the campaign. Following this, I will aim to discuss if this is an example of meaningful woke advertising and discuss the impact of brand activism in the current marketplace. Semiotics, put simply, is the study of how an idea or object communicates meaning, what meaning it communicates, and to which association it brings forth. In semiotics, meaning is considered through the interplay between the signifier, the representation of a concept, and the signified, the concept itself. The opening of this advert kicks off with some low-playing indie music and the setting outside a terraced home. As the camera moves from the darkness of the outside to the front hallway, the camera pans left to show a number of jackets hanging by the stairs, featuring a number of badges, patches, and pins, all defined by Charles Sanders Peirce as symbols. These are for the right activism under a number of different campaigns. The camera now moves to the sitting room, the walls featuring a number of posters and newspaper cutouts, featuring such items as Reclaim the Streets, Airport Protesters Eviction, and Save Pollock Estate. Again, these such flyers are featured on the sideboard before we move to the kitchen. A male and female sitting across from each other having dinner. Behind the female on the wall, above the cooker and also in the fridge, are more activism posters and flyers. As part of the conversation, they both say they love each other before the scene morphs to a police interview room. The male from the dinner scenario now in full police uniform with a headpiece in his ear, receiving communications. The female now looking on in shock and fear, her eyes starting to take in all around her, while her face displays a sign of complete shock, fear and sadness. Behind the male officer, from a piercing perspective, this is a completely male-dominated setting, featuring 4 police officers. 1 police officer on a mobile phone, the next would appear to be a more senior member smoking a cigarette. Another police officer is looking on, and another is typing and looks away. The imagery showing us a male dominance within the police force, and also toxic masculinity within the force. The advert ends with the music volume increasing and the lines appearing on the screen. The police have crossed the line. Activists are spied on for taking a stand. We want the truth. #Spycops. The call to action of this campaign is We want the truth. The linguistic and textual use in the advert is sparse and made up of 3 lines from the very end. The police have crossed the line. Activists are spied on for taking a stand. We want the truth. #Spycops. The scene location reflects an average home in an average street, with the intention being suggested this could occur to anyone anywhere. The scenario set within the video reflects one of a well-established couple who are both in love with each other, or at least that is what the female has been led to believe. In a statement, Lush has said, "We fully support police in having proper police numbers correctly funded to fight crime, violence, and to be there to serve the public at our times of need." And they were only addressing a controversial branch of political undercover policing that ran for many years before being exposed. Lush said its campaign has a specific aim to make changes to undercover policing inquiry. Is this a meaningful woke advertising campaign? In my opinion, yes. Since its creation in 1995, Lush has been at the forefront of being woke. Its campaigns including Go Naked, Vivienne Westwood Climate Change, LGBTI group support, Syrian friendship funds, and of course Spycops. This campaign was the most on the edge for Lush, and to that end brought them a storm of coverage on all ends of the spectrum. The age-old line, no such thing as bad press, is questionable, but overall Lush has reported that following a short-term drop in positivity in social media, drops behind the campaign overall, they reported that sales for the year increased by 14%. My only concern with this campaign was that once things started to get controversial, Lush pulled the campaign. It stayed down for 5 days, for they advised being for the well-being and safety of their staff members. After the tide changed and positive views and opinions on the campaign picked up, they reinstated the campaign. Over the years, we've seen many companies follow these lines, and it leads us to question the motives from the start. Pepsi featured a campaign with Kendall Jenner, bringing peace to a tense situation by presenting a can of Pepsi. Within 24 hours, Pepsi had to scrap the campaign and issue a full apology after the campaign was roundly condemned for trivializing Black Lives Matter's political campaign. When we look at Nike and its interactions with Colin Kaepernick, after announcing him as the face of a new campaign, they received $43 million worth of media exposure, primarily positive. The reaction to Kaepernick broke along traditional liberal and conservative lines. The former applauded him using his profile to highlight the disproportionate amount of black men being shot dead by police officers in the US. The later deemed him to be a disgrace and unpatriotic. Donald Trump called for him to be sacked from his job for disrespecting the national anthem. Nike at current is itself in the midst of a storm. The New York Times published a damning report on the company which opened with the line, "For too many women, life inside Nike has turned toxic," and detailed how staff outings ended up at strip clubs, reported how a boss at the company tried to forcibly kiss a female subordinate, and how women at the company were made to feel marginalised and were largely excluded from crucial decisions. This, along with companies' admitted past use of sweatshop working conditions and poor labour relations, drawing attention to the newer allegations. Closer to home, gambling company Paddy Power sent an empty double-decker bus to participate in Brighton's Gay Pride March, saying it was the official bus of gay professional footballers. The company said they were making a statement about the fact that none of the top 500 Premier League footballers were openly gay, and the bus was to encourage gay players to step up and come out. This was seen as a cheap stunt by most LGBTQI groups and activists. A major undercurrent with all woke washing is the issue with companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Starbucks. All are doing the utmost in relation to declarations of support for its gender and racial diversity, for inclusivity and equality. But when it comes to tax justice, it's another issue. Words are cheap. Paying an equitable amount of tax for your massive corporate profits is expensive, with the rights of one side in the house being balanced by the words on the other side. As companies and customers evolve, our social consciousness is ever growing and is now appearing across all marketplace advertising. In the start, we saw attempts like that of Gillette and its Best a Man Can Be campaign and how it led us in our mindsets. For most companies, this is a reflection on the lush. Spycops campaign. It's not about the selling of a product, but to tell an important story. These campaigns are not in any way new and can be seen for years evolving and transforming. United Colours of Benetton's campaign in the year 2000 featuring prisoners in America on death row was one of the most controversial of the time. The Edelman Trust Barometer shows 64% of global consumers will buy or boycott a brand solely in its position on a social or political issue. The biggest challenge is to bring unison between brands' wokeness and brands' values. How people respond is just as important as wanting them to respond. If the brand's goal is to achieve a certain level of media impact, then controversy for controversy's sake is just fine. However, for brands attempting to encourage consumers to take a clear stance, the campaign's message has to align with the human, primal feeling that cuts through the need to sell a product or service. A company's aim is to primarily drive profits, and no matter what, our key reflection will be their financial wins. The future is woke, but only if the values they champion are woke. For me, the Lush campaign was completely driven from the right place, calling for change, calling for accountability, and calling for awareness. The campaign was not driven towards the brand's products, but its position on social injustice. I personally look forward to seeing where these such brands go next, holding us all accountable for our actions and inactions and being accountable at every step. Thank you.